Welcome back to the sharing section. In this section, the topic will be Matter Matters, a brief intro to the new smart home standard and how Home Assistant supports it. And our guest speaker will be Amanda Lam from Women Techmakers Hong Kong. Amanda manages digital products at Hong Kong Disneyland. She is also an organizer of ProductTank Hong Kong and Women Techmakers Hong Kong, and co-hosts one of the most popular Cantonese tech podcasts, HKPUG Podcast. Amanda, please.
Thank you. So this session will be in English. I think we have some English speakers here as well, right? So let me kick this off. So I'm Amanda. As we just introduced, I'm actually one of the ambassadors and organizer of Women Techmakers Hong Kong. I also actively involved in GDG Cloud Hong Kong events, as well as organizing ProductTank Hong Kong events. And I do run a weekly podcast with several other podcasters in HKPUG, so you can search that in iTunes or Google Podcasts. I'm one of the Warwick alumnus, and I also work for the Mickey Mouse. So let's recap what we mentioned, what we actually discussed last year. Last year was a virtual event, but I was also one of the speakers. We talked about Home Assistant. Let's recap what Home Assistant is all about. These were the Home Assistant old icons, but now they kind of simplify it to new ones. So Home Assistant is open source project. It's being run by a worldwide community. It focuses on local and privacy first. So unlike a lot of other smart home solutions by Google, Apple, or Amazon, it can be run totally locally on your device, like a Raspberry Pi or any spare computers that you have. So it can also be run through Home Assistant OS, it natively boots in your hardware, or it can also be run in Docker container, which offers fewer features compared to the OS option. It supports thousands of integrations, which enrich a lot of the support of the smart home products. You can learn more about Home Assistant in home-assistant.io, and they also have a YouTube channel. These four guys were the original founder of Home Assistant, so they're really actively involved in the development and also in the communications of all the new releases. And they do also offer a cloud service called Labu Casa. So it basically it connects while you can control a lot of smart home devices at local. It can also offer you the flexibility to control your smart home devices outside your home through your mobile phone or through the voice assistants with Google and Alexa. So they also have some specific hardware called Home Assistant Yellow you can buy from their website. But if you have got a Raspberry Pi or just a spare computer, you can also install it by yourself. And the cloud service just costs around $6.5 US per month or $65 per year. So what we talk about today is about Matter. So anyone heard about Matter standard or interested in smart home? So Matter is a new standard proposed by Connectivity Standards Alliance. So this organization used to be Zigbee Alliance, and they kind of transformed themselves into this new term called Connectivity Standards Alliance. So it's actually a standard supported by a lot of the smart home brands like Apple, Philips, Amazon, Samsung SmartThings, Google Home, and Office Alexa as well. So they all form together to formulate a standardized smart home standard, which tries to consolidate the support. Because in the previous days, even up to today, when you buy a smart home product, it often you see a logo, right? Like works with Google Assistant, works with Amazon Alexa or Apple HomeKit. You either choose one of the camps, you either choose one of the ecosystems to start building your smart home. However, sometimes they just don't work with each other. Some products are just for Apple, some products are just for Google. How can we make them talk together? And this is something that Matter wants to address. And underlying the Matter is an application layer. So it's a similar application layer that actually powers in Google, that would be they have their own application layer, right? So they try to standardize it, and then underlying that layer, that would be a network transport layer, which you have also heard a lot of these familiar terms: Zigbee, Thread, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth, and they all have their own physical layer standard. These IEEE standards that actually powers or supported by Matter. And you can see as we talk through these topics, you can see how Matter actually tries to bridge all these different standards together. As mentioned, so Matter is supported by all the major smart home devices, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Samsung, and a lot of Chinese brands as well. A lot of the smart home products nowadays are also made by Chinese brands, so they all support like Tuya. They all support the Matter standard. Well, having said so, because Matter is just a very new standard, it was first announced or released in October last year. So there's still a lot of gaps between now till the mature support for most smart home devices. So a lot of these brands are still working on their products to support Matter. Bear in mind that there are also different categories that are not yet supported by Matter. For the mainstream devices like smart lights, plugs, door locks, thermostats, air conditioners, blinds, curtains, motion sensor, TV streaming, Wi-Fi, hotspots, and bridges, they are mostly supported in Matter 1.0 to 1.1. 1.1 was basically more like a bug fix release that was announced, I think, a few days ago. Yeah. So, but the CSA is also working on the next Matter update on home appliances like washing machines or those larger fridges, smart fridges, or vacuum cleaners, the robot vacuums. They are not, none of them support Matter right now. And also all these home security cameras and all these devices that require higher bandwidth would not be supported by Matter just yet, but they are working on it. So in the previous diagram, you see a term called thread, right? This is also one of the underlying technologies supported by Matter. There are a few characteristics of thread. Thread is actually more like a mesh network, just like you heard a lot of Wi-Fi routers nowadays have this mesh network, right? Thread is similar architecture in a way that is more focused on delivering interoperability and also interconnectivity between the devices. There are different roles of the thread network. So For example, some devices would have this logo called built on thread router, border router. So these are devices that can help you bridge all these local meshed thread supported devices to your internet router. So some examples that devices that have this role is like the Apple TV 4K, HomePod Mini, Google Nest Hub, etc. So they have this kind of feature built in to support the border router role of thread. And then there are also end devices that are built on thread, which are more like the sensors or different smart home items that it requires the border router to connect to the internet. Within themselves, they can run locally, but if you want an internet connection, you want to control your smart home remotely, you need a border router. And there are different devices supporting thread as well. Nowadays, you can see some examples here. But obviously, these lists are actually growing fast every month. Smart lights, you can see like Nanoleaf or Wix light bulbs supporting thread. Smart plugs from Belkin, sensors from Akara or Eve, smart locks from Yale, etc. Support thread. However, not all thread devices will support Matter, depending on their hardware compatibility. So it's a little bit messy right now. Don't automatically assume that thread-supported devices actually support Matter. You will need to wait for the official announcements from the individual manufacturers. But they do have higher chances than other Wi-Fi, Zigbee, or Z-Wave devices to support Matter because this is relatively new standard. Thread is a relatively new standard, and it is actually also well backed by the CSA. And then there is also another lines of products that exist in the market right now, which has much larger user base, which is the Wi-Fi products, right? If you encounter like smart bulbs like the Philips Hue smart bulbs or some smart plugs from TP-Link or switchboard, etc. So they do have announced that they will support Matter either already or eventually. So, so you can consider buying some of these products when you build your next smart home expansion. So not all the Wi-Fi products today would support Matter. Obviously, it will also depending on the individual manufacturers to adopt and that's a business decision after all. Or some older devices would also have limitations on the hardware capabilities and like the memory constraints and etc. So it depends on the products. The newer models that you buy, the higher chances that you will support Matter. So do check with the individual brands that you want to buy to see whether they have Matter support. So there are two different ways of using Matter, right? So there's Matter over Thread and Matter over Wi-Fi. What are the main differences among them, right? So in terms of power consumption, Thread has been designed for smart home devices. So they have very low power consumption, whereas Wi-Fi smart home devices usually don't care about energy that much. For example, light bulbs, it's always connected to your mains, right? So it doesn't really care about the power that much. So usually you will find sensors would mostly be thread supported in the future. With the range, because Matter over thread really relies on the mesh network among these thread devices, they talk to each other and then to connect to your Wi-Fi router, right? So they have good range as long as you place these devices strategically at your home to ensure that the range is well covered. Whereas Wi-Fi products itself are very mature. Obviously, they have higher, what do you call that, energy blasting all over your home, right? So they have actually a much wider range to cover. And also Wi-Fi would have higher bandwidth, whereas thread devices will have lower bandwidth. Wi-Fi products with higher bandwidth examples would be like the security cameras, or like the smart TVs or smart speakers. A lot of them are Wi-Fi enabled. For security-wise, the thread standard has very good security because they are designed for it and they're all encrypted end-to-end. And they also rely on the mesh network to connect with each other. Whereas Wi-Fi Matter devices, the security will really rely on your Wi-Fi settings. If you do not set your Wi-Fi password or you use a very low encryption standard, then your smart home will be quite vulnerable. So bear in mind that if you use a smart home products at your home, the best practice is to, for example, set up another Wi-Fi network that is isolated from all your computers with sensitive personal information. But however, Wi-Fi products do have a much wider availability right now. So yeah, and have a better maturity in terms of home assistant support. Okay, so what about Matter support in Home Assistant? So actually, Home Assistant's role is more like Matter controllers. So they work alongside with connects to the internet router, providing us application layer to support all these Matter devices. So it was quite recently introduced in the December release last year. It allows you to add and control Matter devices. So how do we actually add a Matter device in Home Assistant? First, you need to use the Home Assistant companion app. It's available on iPhone and Android platform. So first, you have to set your device to pairing mode, and then go to your Home Assistant settings to find this Matter support, add Matter device. Then you will have to scan the QR code in your device package, similar to how you add a HomeKit device. So there are different methods of adding Matter devices depending on the ecosystem that you're using. If you're using iPhone, then this is the way to do. If you're using Android, it's similar, but you have to find through the menu, like add integrations, and then you will follow similar steps. But the idea is to scan the QR code is to try to map this device in order to provision it. And the provisioning usually happens via the Bluetooth low energy standard. So your Matter device needs to be near to yourself, near to the border router device, and also near to your home router. And then you just give a name, and then you can add to the Home Assistant. It's pretty simple. So how do we actually use the Matter devices in Home Assistant? After you added the device, you will see there's a category called Matter, and then you'll find all these connected devices there. And then you can then use it as like any other devices in Home Assistant to control it or to see all the data that it monitors. So this particular example is I have a switchboard hub 2, which is Meta enabled. So I have added the curtains, and they also it also builds in the humidity and temperature sensors. So once you have added these devices into Home Assistant through Meta, it will actually you can actually open or close your curtains and also monitor the temperature and humidity at your home. So you can also add the same device in other ecosystems as well. Like if you use Google Home or Apple Home, you can also add these devices in using Meta. So you also heard about Thread devices, right? It's actually not quite well supported in Home Assistant yet. The reason is because there is, like currently the Thread network is actually quite proprietary. So each individual manufacturer would have its own standard of how they communicate with these Thread devices. So I'm quoting from Home Assistant's website. Each vendor forms their own networks when you start using their products. So you can end up having a Home Assistant and Apple, Google Thread network in your home. And they have separate credentials, which prevents devices from roaming between these Thread border routers. So there is also a new standard being suggested by Google to try to resolve these challenges. So this is the new Open Thread standard. Right now, there is a very early stage of support of Open Thread in Meta as an integration. But you can see, like, I have a HomePod Mini at my home, and Home Assistant discovers it, but I cannot use any of these devices right now because they have their own language and credentials. So as I just mentioned, Open Thread is a new standard released by Google and is now being supported by ARM, Amazon, and Eero, Samsung, but not Apple, unfortunately. So let me do some demo. Let me see if this will work. I'm a bit nervous. So you can see this is a remote screen, a webcam screen that is showing my home, my room. There's a curtain here. I have my Home Assistant dashboard here. And you can see that from the Meta integrations, it discovers that there's a switchboard hub, curtains, humidity, and temperature sensor. If I click on these curtains, I can actually control it. Let me close. Let me try to set this side by side. Let me close this remotely. See, it's moving. So, yeah, So you can, by using the Labu Casa cloud account, I can actually remotely control my smart home through a website or my companion app on my mobile device. And obviously, you can also do a lot of smart home dashboards, which is much more sophisticated or customized than all your like Google or Apple offerings. You can customize anything you like to monitor, or even you can, like, I have added in like RSS feeds from the Hong Kong Observatory, and then you can like add in different widgets to show your security camera, different sensors, etc. So, and then you can also have different rules of automation. Say, for example, whenever we detect a warning change in Hong Kong Observatory, and then within the particular time range, I will actually announce it through the HomePod Mini using Cantonese. So that's some of the advanced use case that I can play around with. As a developer, you may be more comfortable than novice users in terms of customizing this. So, because I've done the live demo, I do not play this video, okay? Just for the last few minutes, I want to talk a little bit more about the recent development of Home Assistant. Home Assistant is a really vibrant, open community, a global community, and it has really fast development cadence. So it has like a monthly release, and it adds a lot more features and integrations every month. So earlier last year, end of last year, I think, or early this year, Home Assistant announced that they are actually try to theme this year as the year of the voice. So Home Assistant will have its own voice assistant that you can run locally. So there are different examples, very crazy examples, like you can even use a phone, a traditional phone, with a specific hardware, and then you can use your phone to control your smart home devices. And you also have this kind of voice assistant that you can ask Home Assistant to turn on or off a particular smart home devices. I'm not playing this. I will share these slides later on, so you can actually fit through it. And then recently, they also have this open AI integration. So you see all this, like the assist feature, right? So you can actually integrate with your open AI account, and then use the kind of the GPT-3 capability to ask about what devices you have at your home, categorize them or whatever, but you cannot control them because of the limitations of the Open AI API. It's also about the privacy and security. So, but you can ask it all different kinds of questions you like. And more recently, they also added in like multiple home assistant servers. If you have multiple homes, you want to manage all your smart homes in one app, you can do that on an Android device. Yeah, so that's basically what I have to share today. And there are a few useful resources on the Home Assistant forum, Reddit, Discord, and a bunch of YouTube channels that you can check it out if you want to learn more how to advance your Home Assistant skills. So, Home Assistant will assist you as matter matters. Thank you.